We are happy to see that many of you stayed for the part 2 of our talks as well. As for all the other talks, you have the QR code for the questions. Please scan it and put down your question as they come into mind. We'll try to answer them at the very end of our talk. So, for those who weren't there before, we had the chance to really show all the new features in dashboard and spreadsheets, but this talk is really more technical, and we'll show you how what needs to be done actually behind the scenes to get this very impressive result at the very end. So let me introduce myself for those who just arrived. My name is Richard. I'm a business analyst and also tech expert, and I'm coming here along with my colleague Hugo.
Hi everyone, so for those who were not there yesterday, let me introduce myself as well. I'm also a business analyst and tech expert at Odoo, and I'm responsible with Richard for launching our BR services. So our goal today is to take a really specific use case, business situation, and to go all the way to the final a dynamic dashboard that will help us to answer actually this initial use case there. But first of all, let's ask ourselves a little bit, why do we want to take so much time and efforts to actually create a dashboard? Why do we need dashboards actually? Well, we want to be in control of our businesses, and if you are here today, it's because you understand the advantage of having an operational tool, an ERP, like Odoo in our case. When you use an ERP, you will store everything inside your database, and the action actually generates data, and this data will help you to take decisions more quickly. It's going to be actually any data that, any operations that's going on in your daily operation. So it can be any stock transfer that is waiting for a confirmation, any manufacturing operation that has some components needed for it, recurring revenue from a customer, an opportunity that you know you're going to close soon. This is a lot of data, and it can be used to take your decisions, but there is so much data that it can be hard sometimes to actually decipher what's going on in your business and where things are headed to. So this is why we want to create dashboards. We want to have one centralized view that will help us to have these figures speaking for themselves, and that can help us to take our decisions.
That's right, and also that's why in the approach it's really important to define the right metrics and also see what data you want to display on your dashboard to have the right reporting tool in the end, right? So let's jump into today's context there. Again, a business scenario to have a very hands-on example. In our case here, we will be business owners of a retail company that sells seasonal products, so meaning scarves, beach balls, shorts, all the things alike. And as you can imagine, all those sales volume are very constant. We try at least to keep them constant throughout the years. But the issue is that, of course, if you are selling scarves, you won't sell them in summer. So there will be some variability still. And for the use case here, we also want to work on a commission policy because all our salespeople are super hardworking. We want to give them incentives to keep the performance as well as defining the long-term revenue as well for the company. So that's why we're going to base it on different factors that we'll see together afterwards.
Yeah, and these commissions at the moment, we take a lot of time to actually compute them. Obviously, we need to compute those commissions for every salesperson, for every department, and in our case, in every quarter. So that's a lot of data that we need to do. This is crucial because we really want to give an incentive to our salesperson, but it takes way too much time at the moment, and I think it should be an automated process because the rules are quite well defined and they do not change over time. So we want to be more efficient and to try to create together a dashboard that will help us to have all those commissions already displayed and that we can share with our salesperson so that they can also see their results, each of them in real life. Okay. So let's go to this commission plan that we designed together to see actually what we put into it in there. So first of all, as we explained, we are selling different categories of products that are seasonal by base. So it's only natural that our commission policy would also be based on these product categories to be sure that we are reflecting this, and also based on a quarterly basis to reflect the seasonality of our products. So we'll define a target per product category and per season, all right? Those targets, how do we define them? Well, we don't want to invent some targets that are coming out of the blue like this and are not in touch with reality. So we want to compute them based on past performances to be sure that we have something realistic in this case. And one last detail, in this case, we are not taking, for example, the seniority of our salesperson into account. We could have done that, but we would lag a bit of time during this talk to do it. So that would be for another moment. In this case, we'll keep the same target for everyone. So we have our commission plan. What's the plan now?
So now that we have all the commission plan here in our mind for the context, it's time to define a plan, because this whole problem here is very complex, has different layers. So we like to break it down in 3 different steps that we see together. The first step here will be the data preparation, actually. Right? So if you try to really see what needs to be done at that point, it will be first to define the commission policy for the year, which means that if you reach a certain target, you will be eligible for a certain commission rate, right? So you need to define this policy for the year. And then we'll try to fetch all the past data, right? So that means that all your past sale orders are still there in your database. You want to evaluate them and to define something as a basis, as a reference actually, to be able to forecast or to project targets for the future, which would be our third point, right? So let's first start with this step here and jump into Odoo, right? So we just arrived here in the specific database, and for the environment, you see that there's a lot of apps installed. In our case, we will play with the sales app mainly. Going to the sales app here shows me all my quotation and also all of my colleagues. And we will be playing with this list of products. So different products such as the pants, blanket, boots, beach balls, as we said. All of those are stored into different product categories, which will be category 1, 2, 3, and 4 in that case, just to keep it simple, right? So let's get back into our main dashboard here. At that point, what would you suggest? Did you put the commission policy?
Yeah, I already created the commission policy that I talked about earlier. I put it into a spreadsheet, so you should find it into the document, into the commission workspace.
Right here, yeah.
There.
Great, nice. So this is the commission policy for the year. If you break it down, if you just take the first table right here, you will have the percentage of the target that you achieved. So if you did not reach a target, you will not be eligible for any commission rate, of course. As soon as you reach a target, so 0% above the target, right, you start to be eligible to commission rate. And then as you grow, actually, the commission will decrease. Is it normal?
Yeah, that's entirely normal. We want to give really a good incentive to go over the target, but then we don't want to lose too much money if the salesperson are exploding their target. So we're trying to have a marginal gain that will reduce in the future.
Great, okay. And the second table here shows us a simulation, right? So for the target of 1,000 there, if you did not achieve any revenue, of course, you won't have any commission. As soon as you start reaching the target, you also start at 0, but as you grow, you get more and more commission.
To be sure that we have this incentive to go further, can you maybe do a small graph
of
this?
Of course. You just select this range here, go there, insert a chart, and see that you have now this nice chart that really shows that the more revenue that you still get more and more commission, but you have this decreasing margin, so that we make sure that everyone is still, say, encouraged to go the extra mile without us losing too many revenue, basically, right?
Yeah,
great. So that works quite well. What would be the next step here? We wanted to retrieve past data, right?
Yes. So now we have to analyze the data. I guess that we defined it's going to be by product category, and that we are looking at the commissions for every salesperson for the past quarter. So I guess you could go to the sales application, to the reporting, and then we'll look for a pivot view per product category, per sales, and group by salesperson and per quarter.
Right, that would be the correct approach. So for all your sales analysis, it most of the time starts with a pivot table. So as we said, we also want to put the commission for every single salesperson, so that will be our first dimension. The second one, as Hugo mentioned, will be the quarter, because we want to evaluate it on a quarterly basis. So this is all the revenue that every salesperson got for a specific period. We also want to differentiate it for every product category. So that's why I'm going to simply filter out on the product category here to have the first one, right? Let's insert it. So again, inserting here lets me choose either a new spreadsheet or an existing one. So I want to combine it to the commission policy sheet that I had before, so let's select it at that point. Confirming here, create a new sheet with my first product category. So let's do so for all the others. So coming back here, one step behind, category number 2, inserting in the spreadsheet again. Same goes for number 3 and 4.
Yeah, so I guess from that we'll be able to define a measure to find a proxy for the target, but that will be for the past element. So how are we going to compute the future target that we want to do?
I think an approach here would be to evaluate the growth that we had from previous years. So we are in 2023 now. An interesting approach would be to have the growth rate between different years. So that's why I'm going to go back in my pivot table here, get all my revenues once again, and then group it by year so that I can have all the revenues that were done in 2021 compared to 2022. If I now insert it in my spreadsheet once
Oh, you
again.
still have a filter applied there.
All right, thank you. I will just erase it in that case because I forgot to remove the product category. Thank you for that. Going back here and reinserting. I will get rid of that one so that I do not I just don't confound them.
Yeah.
So I'll take all my revenue from 2022, right? And if I just divide it actually by the one from the previous year, you will understand that I now have the growth factor that was observed between those 2 years, right? So we have everything inserted. We have all the sales for product category 1, 2, 3, and 4, plus this yearly analysis to have the growth factor, right? Since we are going to combine them all together now, it is a good practice to create a new sheet, the main data sheet that will combine everything together. So let's create a new one, rename it to main data, and then put it at the beginning so that we don't lose track of it. So we first start with the actuals, right? So I will create a new table here, the actuals, for which I will going to take the category number 1, and then the number 2 up to the 4th, right? So 1, 2, and then 3, 4. Then I will take all my past quarters. So I go to any sheet, actually, go there, select all the past quarters from the start of 2021 to the end of 2022, and then paste it right here. So now, for every category and for every quarter, we want to have some kind of basis or reference or an actual, right? An approach could be to take the median or the average.
I guess in this case I would take the median so that we are not influenced too much by really big values and that we have something that is achievable by most of our salesperson.
So I'll just again get the median through this single formula. So median here of the first sheet, which reflects again the figures for category number 1 of all the salespeople. So I take the median of all revenues made by salespeople for the first quarter, right? So I'll just take this, drag it to the very end, right? And then I only need to change the sheet to go through the other categories. So sheet 1 was for category number 1, so for number 2, I will simply change sheet 1 to be sheet 2, and then sheet 3 in that case, and finally sheet 4 for the 4th for the category, right? Great, I can now just drag and drop it, and we now have all the targets. Here, I will just paste as value so that it does not move along, and then reformat it, of course, to be in a currency format. So those are my bases for my targets, okay? Now that we have all the actuals, I will also define the targets right here. So the same table will apply. So I just take all those values again, take the quarters, right? And then define a new table in there. So for all the past periods, normally you should have already targets defined, of course, or either manually inputted one or computed from previous years. In this scenario here, I just try to round it up to have an interesting value to play with. But of course, you would have something different in a real case scenario. So I will just round up the value to the 100 here. So take this cell and then use -2 here to have something that I forgot the comma. That is rounded up to the 100, right? So I can just drag and drop it, and you now have all the budget here for the past quarters, okay? So we have all the projected targets for the previous periods. Now we also want to define it for 2023. So in our case here, let's just say that we are at the very end of 2022, and you try to establish targets for the next year, so 2023, okay? So let's just try here to put those quarters there to the next year, and we now need to define those targets. So an approach could be to simply take the median from the past period, so Q1 2022, and then multiply it by the growth factor that we saw before, because we expect to do at least as well as last year. So it would make sense as a first approach, of course, to have this. So let's take the growth here. That fetches the coefficient that we saw before, right there, and we only need to take the actual from the previous year multiplied by this specific growth factor, okay? So I'm going to put it like this. This is fine.
Okay.
And then I now have my projected value, right? So I took the one for the previous year. I kind of expect it to grow the same way it did between 21 and 22. So this is now my new value projected for the new year. I again will round it up to have a nice value to play with to the 100. So like this. And if I now display it for this year, these will be my targets. All right? And this is the end of step number 1. So we have everything prepared. We got everything sourced. We have the targets defined for the next coming period. So let's move to step 2 here, where we go with
Yep.
takeover.
So now that we have our targets, I guess the next step is going to be to process a bit the past data of this year to see how our salesperson are actually comparing to this target. But first of all, I would like to play with some filters to be able afterwards to just filter on one specific salesperson, for example, or a specific date, or a team leader in its department. Then I'll try to make the whole table dynamic. That will be more clear for you afterwards. And then we'll, from there, try to get the target performance per salesperson, and then compute the commission on that base. Right?
Great.
So let's go back directly into Odoo and look our sheet 1 here. What I want to do, as I said, is to play a bit with the filters to see if we could filter around on one specific salesperson in this case. So I'm not going to use these filters right here that will only filter my spreadsheet as such. I will use a more powerful tool that I often find here at the top right that are called global filters. The global filters will enable me to actually filter the data source before it even gets to the spreadsheet in this case. So I will create a filter, and here I wanted to play on the salesperson, so I would just create a relation filter.
Why did you choose the relational filter here, not the text one, for example?
Well, I choose a relation filter because salesperson is a relational field, meaning that this data we got it from the sales order, well, the sale order sale.report model actually, but we have connections to another model that is users. So this is why it's a relational model, and my related model in this case will then be user. So I can just input the user right here, and you'll see that now I have this field matching here that appears. The field matching is there because obviously I can have more than one relation between the two models that I just described. For example, I could have the person that just created the sale order, I can have the person that last modified it, that's also a user, or I can have the person that is assigned to it, in this case the salesperson. So Odoo is quite clever and just added all the salesperson right there, so I don't have to change anything. So now I can save this filter, and I can just filter on one or specific salesperson here.
Oh, nice. As you use it, I just noticed, actually all the numbers are getting filtered based on what you selected, but all the others are still there. Is there a way to make it more compact, or?
Yeah, actually, that comes from the formula that we have here. If we have if we look more into the details of this formula, you can see that we have 3 attributes. The first one will be the pivot number that we have, so we can find all the pivot numbers there. So this is why it is just a 1 in this case. User ID here is because it's the technical name of the field that we are using, which is the salesperson. In this case, it's user ID, so we grouped by user ID. This is why I have this field. And then I will have this 67 here. That is actually the ID of the user inside the database. So meaning get me user number 67 in the database.
Okay, I understand, makes sense. So that means that if I now have a new salesperson coming in, for example, a new one that just got hired, it wouldn't be exactly in there because I would need to guess or find the ID. So not so
Yeah, we
convenient.
cannot do that, and if the ID doesn't exist, then it would throw an error in there.
But you have a solution.
Yeah, there is actually a solution for that. So there is a small trick that we can do that is just to add actually a hashtag here in front. And instead of getting the ID of the user, it will let us get the order of that user in the list that we have. So in this case, if I get user ID up here, number 2, I get Christopher Balza because this is the one I've filtered out on my list here. So I could actually do that for all of my salesperson. So what I will do is just insert a small column left here, and I will modify a bit my formulas to be sure that I have something that is a bit more dynamic. So one element that I want to also put here is the pivot number. So I'm just saying this is the pivot number 1. And then I will create a small list here to see how many salesperson I actually want to get. And I can go a bit further than what I had initially. So I could go to 21 in this case.
Number 1.
And then I will modify my formula here, not to get number 1, but in this case, to get the value that I have in C2, my hashtag user ID. And then instead of getting this value, I will get the value that I have there. So you see that by doing that, it all still returns me something here. And I can just drag and drop this formula all the way down. and then I get the two salesperson that I had in my filter
Super cool.
right
Can you
here.
play around to see
Yeah,
what happens?
so if I remove them,
Alright.
you see the list.
Okay.
Now it's full. I can really have
So this is
specific
what you meant
salesperson.
by making it dynamic.
Yeah, it's way more dynamic like this.
Great. But then, so that works for salespeople, right? But what about the dates there for the quarters?
Yeah, well, we have the same kind of formula right here. So you can see that we have the day quarter and then the specific day that will enable us to have the specific quarter. So we could try actually not, here not to make an order, but try to compute it based on today's date. So let's take today's date here, for example. So I'm just going to say update here equal today, just with this Excel formula, up. And then I want to have the same kind of format. So I'm just going to take the quarter of this. Okay, that works. I get quarter number 4. And to have the full format, I will just concatenate it with the slash that I had before, up. And I will add the year as well, so I have the full format of my cell. So by doing this, you see that I redefined
the same
the kind
expression
time
as
of
in
format,
this.
and then I can replace this right here with this element there, and you see that I get Q4 2023.
Okay, nice. So that means that this cell is always taking the current quarter based on today's date, so the
Yeah,
today's
that's it.
formula, right? Cool. And then what about other quarters? How do you do that?
Well, for other quarters, we could try to compute the date that was 3 months prior, so the meaning one
Right.
quarter before, and then from that date we can compute then the same
expression
kind
that
of
we had
format.
before.
So in order to do that, what I will do is just hit here at kind of an offset. So let's say I want to go 3 months in the past, 6 months in the past, 9 months in the past. I'm not going to go further than a year because this is not really interesting. And then I can use the edate function in this case that takes a start date. So I will take today's date, and then the number of months that I want to go in. So in my case, -3. So just by doing this, you see that I find the date 3 months prior from now. And then I can just pull this function as well. And I have all the different quarters that are computed.
Great.
So I can now pull this one, and my quarters are computed as well.
Super nice. So that means that the first one just reflects the current quarter, right? And then since you just subtract 3 months, 6 months, and 9th month, you already has the previous quarter and the one before, and so on and so on.
Yeah,
Great,
that's it. And I can actually go even further than that, because I base myself on today's date. But what if I want to my customer to my user, sorry, to play with this date, to be able to go in the past? I can actually create another type of filter right here. So I will create a text filter in this case that I will call date. I don't want to match it with anything. I want the user to be free of putting an input there. And what I will try to do is to put the value of this date filter right here. So for that, I'm just going to replace this by saying this is Odoo filter value. So the name is quite expressive. Then get the value, the name of my element there, my filter that I created. Okay. And you see, well, here it's empty, so I'm just going to do a small if to be sure that if it is empty, I'm still taking today's value up. So I'll just do this, that I can copy, and up. So if I don't put anything, I'm back on today's date. But if I want to go in the past, for example, and start this table in June 30, 2023, then you see that everything is getting computed and all my quarters are moving. So I can really play around with that commission.
Oh, that's super nice. I guess we just get rid of the other columns, something like this. And another question I would like to ask you here, for the pivot number, don't we need to do something? For the headers, I think we didn't put the pivot one fixed.
Yeah, exactly. I forgot to do that, so I will do it right now to be sure that we have this as well. Up. Well seen. So I'm just gonna refer to the same thing. Yep, like this, and then I can just pull it.
Nice. Okay, cool. So now we have like all the headers and the rows made dynamic, right? Now, what you also want to change the cell content here because everything is just mismatched, right? So all the headers are correct, but the content is not good.
Yeah, indeed. But if we know how to change the header and we know how to change the axis here, well, the formula in between is actually just the crossover of those two with a measure in more. So I'm just going to do the same kind of operation, meaning I will replace the 1 here just to take this value right here. I will add my hashtag in front of my group by in this case. I will change this to take what I have in this column. I'm just going to make sure that I'm blocking the cell A. And then I will change the quarter right here to take this value there. Just want to make sure that I'm blocking the row 4 as well. And you see that the value that was computed probably here is not going to be computed there. So I can just take this and drag it all the way. And well, in this case, nothing is computed, but if I remove my salesperson filter, I really have here a fully dynamic table that's always going to show me all the data from the past year for the salesperson that I select.
So that's the most dynamic version of the table that you can get. So if you just select 2 salespeople there, you only see those 2 figures, right?
That's it. So it's super important to have such a good base for our work because we are sure that we have something that will always reflect what's happening at the moment.
Nice. Quick question for you. If I were to select all the salespeople in a specific team, would I have to really find them one by one, or is there a better way to do that?
No, you could actually create another relation filter in this case. So I don't really have the team here, but I could filter on the specific coach because I have one manager per team. So I could create another label here. So I'm just going to say who is the coach in this case. And then take a related model that's still going to be user because a coach is a user. And here, in this case, I will have to change the field matching because I don't want to get the salesperson. I actually want to get the coach of the salesperson. Just select the user as well, like this. So I will do for this one, it's going to be a bit long if I do everything. So I'm just filtering on here for the example. But then you can see if I select myself, so I'm just going to remove the salesperson before. But if I select myself, here I will see all the elements of my team directly.
Great, super nice.
Okay, so I guess that's all for the dynamic table. Maybe we can go over to computing the commissions a bit more now.
Let's go ahead. So coming back here in the slide for a quick second, so we just made the 2 first points, right? So we played with filters, we also made it super dynamic. Now we are going to really get the target performance per salesperson, and also then compute the commission, which is the end goal that we wanted to reach together, right? So let's get back into that. So for sheet number 1, which again reflects all the figures from category number 1, I want to see how each salesperson performed against a target. Again, a target is defined here for one category and also for one time period. So to get that, I just want to create a new sheet, actually, that will be my target reach there. I will fetch, of course, the list of all my salespeople with a quick reference right here. Drag it down to the bottom a bit more. And there we go. Nice. So, also getting the periods that we computed before. So taking this one here, and then, taking all this range. And now this gives me the table that we get, right? So for every quarter, for each salesperson, what was the performance against the targets? But we need a target before that.
Okay, but I just made the dates totally dynamic. So how can you get the good target for each quarter then?
If you were to check it manually, you also need to first check the quarter and then the category, right? So for that, I just combine 2 different formulas, which will be the H lookup and then the H lookup and also the match. So let's do that together. I will first look for the quarter, right, that you want to fix on the row. Look for the quarter in this specific table, right, that I also need to fix. And then as for the correct line to be at, I will need the match. And this match here will let me choose a specific category, which I will just put here for now. I will need to write down category 1 or 2 or 3 or 4, right? That you also need to fix. And I will look for this category name in this specific column, right? Again, fixing, then just ending the formula here. So 0 and then 0 again there. And let me just write down here category. Category 1 here. Oops. right there, right? So
How that
because I
works.
chose to look for category 1 here and a specific target for that, I can now see that for Q2 2023 here, so that one, I have the correct target selected. Let's just pull down this formula here to get it for the other periods as well, and we are good to go. So we have the targets for everyone. We just want to see how they performed against it. So it's quite simple. You just take the revenue that they achieved for the same period, right? To which you will subtract the target that you will need to also fix on the row. And then you just divide it actually by the total as well. So let me put this down until C33, right? And this is a percentage, all right? So you back here to a percentage, and let's try to see how it behaves, right? So if you take, for example, Chloe in that case, he performed really well, actually. If you check here, she achieved a 12,000 revenue here, which is, of course, super high compared to the target. So that's why she went 160% over the target, and that is the performance, right?
Okay, that's super nice. So from that, how are we going to compute which commission rate will apply?
You are only one step ahead, actually. You have the performance there, so you need to check in your commission policy where they are eligible for a commission rate and then see what's in there. So let's just start with that step. Creating here a new table, right? So the commission rate, there, again, taking the list of your users and also the period, right? So that everything follows through. As soon as I play with my filters, everything will move accordingly in a very dynamic way. So taking, again, here all my users right there. And for every single user, I will do a VLOOKUP value. So I will look for this specific performance, right, in my commission table, which is this one, fixing, and taking the second column. Since all the values are sorted here, I can easily find what they are eligible to. So taking this formula here, opening it, and there we go. Let's just take someone here. So if you take Chloe for Q1 and 2023, she performed to be at 116%, which actually matches the rate that I had before. Let me just take this back because I drag it down. You have the correct commission rate based on their performance. Now that you have all the commission rates in there, you only need actually to multiply it by the overachievement of the goal. So if you are $100 over the goal, just take this value and give the commission to the salesperson. So let me just multiply it then by the revenue achieved, again, minus the target that I will need to fix on the row right there. And now you have the correct value, but in a currency format instead. Taking that, applying it to the whole range, and there we go. We now have all the commission made for every salesperson for category number 1 in a specific quarter. Good.
Okay. Great. So super cool. Now that we have this commission, I guess we can go over to the last part to just try to put all that together. Great.
But about all the other categories?
Oh yeah, I completely forgot about that.
We're running out of time actually. We
yeah,
have the time
but
to do
we
that for
don't
the
need to
others.
do that for every sheet, do we?
Would you like to show us?
No. Well.
Okay, I'm going to do this. So that's fine. That's the first sheet for category number 1, right? If I were to do that all over again, it would take a lot of time. But we put a lot of effort into making super dynamic. So the way to do that is simply actually to first rename it to C1 to be category number 1. And if you duplicate it, actually, you'll find that everything that you defined before can be changed to reflect what you want to see for category number 2. So category number 2 is linked to pivot number 2 as well. So I'm just changing here the pivot to be number 2. And as for the targets, I don't want to see them from category 1, but category 2 instead. And then everything is already done, right? So let's just do that together for the 2 last ones, and then we'll be good to go and combine everything. So duplicating here, C3, pivot number 3, and here again, I want to have the targets for category number 3, and the last time here, renaming C4, pivot 4, so the 4th pivot that I inserted, and then category number 4 right here. So now we have all the measures that we wanted, right? So taking a step back here into our slide, we really finished processing all the data. So everything that we want to see is actually in there. So the next step now is actually to try to visualize everything. So that means illustrating the commission policy, making a quick summary table as well, and maybe a last one for the target achievements.
Okay, I'll try to take care of that part then. Well, for the commission policy, you already did that. So maybe I can create a small sheet that will be our future to be dashboard in this case. So I will just call it dashboard, yeah, here. And then I can just copy this first element and put it here, so we have a clear definition for all of our salesperson of what our commission is to be. Then in my main data here, I will try to compute all of my different commissions for the past years. So to do that, the first element that I'm going to take is maybe the date. So I will base myself on the these cells because we made the effort of making everything dynamic. So I'm just going to be taking those values and referring to them. So I'm sure that we are keeping the same dynamism afterwards. So here up, I will make this everything equal. Just pull it down and up. That's it. So if we want to have the commissions for the whole quarter, then I guess I can just take the commission that were computed for each of them, and then just add them like this by going every time to the sales cell because it's never going to move actually. So I'm just going to go up to
So
C3
taking
as
all
well.
commissions from all product categories.
That's it, because we computed each of them, so I can just add them now here. And now I have a value for Alex in Q2, and I can actually just pull this in both sides, and that should actually work. So,
Wow.
well, job done. We just got the commission for every salesperson.
To the whole
Maybe I just
commissions.
want to get a sum just to see over the whole year how they performed through all the year and all categories, just like this. And I will want to check as well for every season how it went. So I'm just going to put a sum, leaving one blank space if we have a newcomer maybe in the future. Up, forgot the equal. Up, and then selecting all of this. Nope. And like this. And I have a full table with all of my commissions, so that's
So
pretty great.
yeah, super useful for us actually. So we can see for every salesperson what were the total commissions for a quarter. So that's super useful. Maybe can you have something more visual for also salespeople to see because this is more for us than for them, right?
Yeah, I guess then I would like to look for every category, how they perform specifically against the target. Maybe we can do that for the last quarter to have really a
Right.
performance indicator on that. So I'm just going to compute then another table, but with just the performance for the last quarter. So meaning it's always going to be this one usually. And I'm going to put here the different categories. So I'm just going to transpose that right here. Okay, and then get the salesperson as well. Here, up. And then usually, since everything is dynamic, the performance, the sales that they did for each category is just going to be this cell here every time. So meaning I'm going to go to there. Okay, so that works for category 1. And then I just have to copy my cell and change C1 in C2 in this case. Up, then to C3.
Since all the sheets are named the same, so
Yeah, that's
C2
it.
for category number 2.
And they are, well, we just copied it, so they have the same structure. I can just change the name of the sheet in this case. Up. So I have here a table with all my sales for each category. Then I will want to get the target, so I can compare maybe to the target over there. So I'm just going to check what was the target for this. Once again, it's dynamic, so we'll have to look with our match in this case to be sure that we are finding the right category in this case. So I'm just going to go look for H lookup of this element in this big table right here. Okay, so I'm going to fix the table as well. And then find my match up to be sure that I'm matching the category that I have here. Then my categories are here, so I'm just going to fix the table. And then I can just complete my formula just like you did earlier by adding the zeros. And now by pulling this, I should find what were the targets defined for each of those categories for the quarter that is mentioned here. So I can just also maybe look at the sum of all my sales, so I can compare that. Oops, I put it in the wrong place. I'm just gonna put it here instead. Sorry. Up. So this is gonna be the sum. All right. Yeah, but here I'm not comparing the same thing because I have the target for one person and the
Right.
sum of them. So
So we need to
maybe,
multiply it.
yeah,
Mm.
I can just multiply this by counting how many salesperson I have. So I'm just going to do a count unique on this element, on this list there, that I will need to fix as well to be sure. And if I do that, I have the target for the amount of persons that I have.
Looks super nice. Can you play with filters to see what happens? So for now, we have all these people involved, right?
Yeah, I think it's going to be even more visual if I put a graph, and then we'll check how that evolves in this case. So I'm just going to select this, go to Insert, take a chart. Well, it's in the wrong way, so I'm just going to add a new range in this case, which is going to be this range, up, and confirm. And a second range, which is going to be my sum, confirm. Going back a bit here, I will say I have this, and then change my categories, labels, to be sure that I'm taking those categories here, and confirm. And then you see I have an as graph with the target and the sum of how they performed actually. So now if I'm playing with filters in this case, up, you'll be really able to see that it's super dynamic and changing with who I select, and then multiplying by the amount of users that I have
All
in here.
right.
So I can just, once again, copy this, put it in my dashboard. Oh, miscopied, sorry. Here, I'm just gonna put it there, and then I can just also refer to my other table that was right there. So I'm just going to take this element there, and then pull it in all directions, in this case, to be sure that I have all the data. Okay, well, so the visuals are not that good, but I think it's not that important that we spend time on that in this talk. Maybe we can just have a look at something that is already done, because
Right.
I already done the exercise before. So I just published it as a dashboard afterwards. So maybe we can see what it gives us when we have a dashboard in this case. Up. How can I go back with this? Okay, thank you. Up, so I will go to my dashboard, commission here, and then we have really the nice example.
So the result is exactly the same, but
yeah.
we spent more time put
So
some
we have
makeup in it.
our filters here at the top, and then all the commissions in a nice table, computing with everything, and some titles as well, so we know what we are talking about. And if I'm selecting a salesperson, obviously it's telling me for who the data that we are seeing is meant for.
Super impressive. So that ends up the use case here that we wanted to present together. Of course, all the data are now going to be dynamic. You also are able to select a specific team, and that's super great. So let's try to wrap it up a little bit. There's so much that we did. So to recap, we first started externally, right? So we wanted to define something based on the commission policy for the current year, right? We also put all the data coming from Odoo in the same spreadsheet to combine it, so all past data. From there, we kind of deducted the growth that we wanted to set in order to get the future targets that we want to use as well for the use case. And then manipulating everything, we put filters on it. We really made the pivot table dynamic in order to have something that really reflects the date that we selected for the overview. So that if I take a date from a previous quarter, it really reflects that specific quarter. Or the target performance per salespeople, so how they performed against a target that also was set in the past. Finally, commission, deducted quite easily, and then the visualization part is also a bit more about aesthetics, but super important as well. Right? So, to conclude here, I wanted to say that it really takes some time indeed to create a new reporting tool, but it really is worth the time, because it really is an investment that you make at the first place, right? To really understand what you need, define it, configure it, and then you end up with a very nice tool that is interactive. You can play with filters, you can also navigate into Odoo data directly. So it really is the right tool to drive your business. The only thing that you need to take care about is not to drive too fast. Right, so let's conclude our talk here.
Yep. So this was just one use case that we saw together. Obviously, if you can encounter things that will be more complicated than that. So if you want our help to configure beautiful dashboards, way more beautiful than that, or some specific use case with you, don't hesitate to scan our QR code here so that you can call for help and you can discover our services that we can provide for you.
Great. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Let's hear your questions.
Thank you.
Can you all hear me? Yeah.
Hi.
Hi.
Thank you guys for the presentation. It was very, very powerful, very useful as well. I think I saw a few questions. I might go over the ones that are at least the most important for everyone, and then.
Yep.
Keep your mic.
Keep your mic.
Oh, sorry.
That's right.
So for the first one, how do you manage? It's two questions in one, but how do you manage the creation of a new record? For example, an employee, and will a new line be created?
Right. So we kind of discussed it as
Yeah.
well. I guess the question just came up as well. But for the feedback here, every formula normally just fetches the ID of the user. So if that a new salesperson comes in, you would need to find a new ID. So the more dynamic way to handle it is just to use the hashtag trick, as we saw. So you just display the first salesperson and the second one and so on. And then if you just anticipate enough the formula to also take into account newer users, they will just appear there. Because every formula is always correct. You just need to make the formula more dynamic to match what you want to display, right? But the data source is always there and correct.
What's important here is that we used in this case only one dimension on the group by. This works super well when we have one dimension. If you are filtering by grouping by more than one field, then it will not apply in this case. So we advise to try to, as much as possible, group by one dimension and then make the aggregate together inside the spreadsheet afterwards.
Right, both for readability and usability as well.
Yeah.
Perfect. This is a very common one. Is there going to be documentation on the formulas and most importantly on the filters and how to use and configure them?
There will. Actually, we are working a lot on documenting everything online on the Odoo Doc actually website. We just haven't been able to provide them all at once. There's so many things to say. To be honest, all the formulas we also provide and support, so it just takes some time, but it will come in a very near future. That's our goals as well.
Yeah. There's another question regarding to future documentation and resources. Are there any improvements for handling big data? For instance, loading millions of rows into a spreadsheet and using these to calculate and make a dashboard?
Well, we are not at millions of rows at the moment, but there are already been so much improvements since Odoo 16. As you can see today, we were loading a lot of different pivot views. There were actually quite a lot of sales order behind the numbers that we showed today, and we had actually no performance issue at all. So we are really getting there in terms of performance. Not millions of rows at the moment. I guess for that you might have to use some other specific tools. Or what I would advise is also to try to aggregate the data that, like we did today, by using pivot views that already work for you, and most of the queries are already done and getting the values aggregated.
Indeed, yeah. So just good practices in general. We worked here with 3,000 SOs, which is already quite an impressive number. For performance, there's a real world of difference between 16 and 17, to be honest. And as Hugo said, it always is a better idea to try to aggregate things so that you don't get to load too many things at once.
Thank you very much. There's a lot of questions here, so I might read a few of them. Maybe we can cover them all, but
Okay, let's try, let's go.
Yeah. The next one is it possible to restrict access to specific dashboards, for example, sales commissions?
That's true that we didn't show it in this specific talk, but we showed it in the last one. Let me just make a quick recap. So for every dashboard that you will publish, you'll go to dashboards, right? And once you publish it, you are able to also select who in your users, or in terms of group, which group may even see the dashboard. And then there's even a second layer, because once you enter the dashboard that you may see because of your group, you will have all your figures in there, and all the figures that you see are always bound to your own access rights. So that means that if you only see your own sale orders, I took the same example earlier, then you only see the figures of your own quotations, right? So you never see something that you are not allowed to see in any sales, any sense, right?
Okay, perfect. The next one, when a dashboard or spreadsheet has been shared outside of Odoo, will it be automatically updated when data has changed?
No,
Not
so
yet.
at the moment we are sending a frozen version, so it is set directly when you're looking at the computer right here. So you see that it's saying frozen version, anyone can view. That allows you to give, for example, to send it once a month with the result that you had last month. So in our commission example, it could be a good practice to send it in an email to the whole company as well, so people that will not go look at the dashboard can actually have the result. But it's really a frozen version at the moment.
Indeed, yes.
Okay.
And both for spreadsheets and dashboards, if there was
Yeah.
a question for that. Yeah.
You have 4 product categories now and had to make spreadsheets for every single one. Is there a way to make this dynamic for if you have, for example, 50 product categories?
Right, but it depends a bit on the use case. So for every scenario, actually, there's a better way to handle it. In our case, it was easier to do it like this because we also wanted to have an aggregate, right, of all the categories. Sorry. So that's why we chose to work like this. Actually, I would say the implementation choice that you need to make, to make it efficient and also readable, really is depending on what you need to achieve. So in that case, if you had 50 product categories, I would imagine a filter that lets you see category per category, all the figures, I guess. Maybe
Yeah,
another
or
idea,
the opposite here, we put all the salesperson to one table. Usually you're not going to look at all the salesperson at once, so maybe you could have a table that represents all the categories, and then you filter out on one salesperson specifically each time that you need to access one commission. So both are possible, and you have to think about how you want to organize yourself to fit with the data that you have, because obviously it will mean more or less work.
And like as a general philosophy here, dashboards are bound to be super compact and readable, so it's not exactly the right approach to try to see like hundreds of thousands or records. So most of the time you only want to really see certain categories at once, even though you may have hundreds of those, right? So for the display and also for the usability of the tool, it's best to try to really put yourself in the shoes of I want to see this specific figure, not them all at once. It's not even readable to see them all at once as well. So, yeah.
An AI automation question. Can AI generate dashboards automatically based on data in Odoo?
Not yet. It may be planned for the future, but for now we only work with 2 types of dashboard, I would say. So the standard one that we are also reworking and revamping for everyone that are already there at the installation of the database, and then all the ones that you, of course, may create. So I hope that this talk helped you kind of get into what you need to do. There's a lot of things to do, of course. But for now, you just either create them manually to your own needs, or you can request our help, and then use the standard dashboard if it already fits your reporting needs as well.
Okay, perfect. One question, it's a bit how to make a dynamic table but maintaining the totals.
By maintaining the totals.
Totals.
Well, here we set, we try to have place for newcomers in the list, for example. What I would do in this case is just to put the totals at the top of the list, because you're sure it will never move. And then you just take the whole column and be sure that you're taking a bit of space, obviously, for the newcomers. This will always work for a certain amount of newcomers, and at one moment you need to maybe maintain that sheet. That's why it's always important to understand what's happening, but it's already a good option in this case.
Yeah, just also another thing to show you what could be done there. The totals that you always display once you first insert the pivot table is just that one, right? So if you just take, so normally every cell is a combination of a date and a salesperson, right? So if you take here, there's first the salesperson here, and then finally the quarter. So if you kind of remove the last part, you always have the total in there. So you can also just reuse the formula there to always get the total at any point, or you can just make a sum as well. So it's kind of up to you. You have options.
Is it possible to find historic data by formula? Meaning, for example, what was on a certain street of a contact on a certain day 1 year ago?
Okay.
Only if it's tracked, actually, because well, some of the data, it depends on the type of fields, because some of the data will just be replaced, and the old value is not stored anywhere, so we lost the track of that information. What we can do sometimes is to create a new model to track this information, and then you will be able to make some dashboards and analysis on that model that allows you to make the tracking.
Yeah, really. So most data is just for performance and storage issues as well, are just replaced, right? So if you need something to be tracked historically speaking, you either use a new model, as Hugo said, or you can use also the tracking values menu here. So tracking values here always show you the old and the new value, but only for fields which are tracked. So that's not the case for all fields, but if it ever was the case, you can just fetch it from here as well.
Well, I guess we're running out of time. So
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, it's also getting hungry.
Yeah.
now.
There's plenty of questions. So yeah. Thank you very much, guys.
Yeah, thank you everyone.
enjoy your lunch.